must have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you will become part of somebody else's plan.
Yes. The walls of nationality will go down, of class will go down. Why? Because brain power, brains hooked up together, sending brains to our eyeballs electronically around the world will link up this community.
Invention, connection, adumbration of ideas, mathematical algorithms, connectivity of people, social systems. This is all accelerating furiously and under the control of no one. Not the Catholic Church, the Communist Party, the IMF, no one is in charge of this process. This is what makes history so interesting. It's a runaway freight train on a dark and stormy night. This is why I'm not particularly sympathetic to conspiracy theory. Because I can't make the leap to faith that would cause you to believe anyone could get hold of the beast enough to control it. I mean, conspiracies, of course, we have conspiracies up the kazoo, but none of them are succeeding. They're all being swept away, compromised, astonished by new information, and endlessly agonized.
This machine has stored program concept as its major feature, and that, in fact, is the thing which makes the modern computer revolution possible. The programming was an art, in fact, a very black art,
To us, as thinking individuals, is that the speed of involution toward concrescence is now so great that we can feel the tug of it within the confines of our own lives.
Concrescence, the process through which seemingly dissimilar phenomena are integrated into a coherent whole.
All of the technologies that we think of as the modern internet and the personal computers were really created first in an area around Stanford University between 1960 and 1975. At the same time that there was both a vibrant counterculture and ideas about augmenting human intelligence, augmenting the human mind, were being pursued both by the technologists, and they were sort of alive in a lot of the counterculture community that was taking place around Stanford. The technology didn't emerge in the vacuum. Technology is actually mediated by things that are going on in society, whether they be politics or economics or culture. In 1965, 1966, there were two men on either side of the Stanford campus. One was John McCarthy and one was Doug Engelbart. McCarthy was leading a research group that wanted to replace the human mind. He was exploring these technologies called artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence at that time, the researchers thought that they could create a computerized artificial intelligence in a decade. On the other side of the campus, Engelbart was doing something different. He was trying to augment the human mind. He was trying to build a set of technologies that would allow humans to cooperate more quickly and invent things more efficiently. I really struggled to try to understand what the relationship is between the use of psychedelic drugs by a small community of people during the 60s and the development of computer technology. And I'm still uncomfortable by saying one led to the other. It's clear to me, however, that they both emerged at the same time, and there were aspects of each that resonated.
About the iPhone 15, right? What is that one going to look like? I suspect you won't even be able to see it because it'll be
you'll swallow it.
You'll swallow it, exactly. It'll be a capsule that you swallow or something you put under your skin, and then you're just, you're just connected all the time. And there, and maybe that's what psychedelics are. They're partly learning tools for customizing ourselves to this new information-saturated environment that we inhabit. I mean, this is what McLuhan said, that they were tools they were iterations or prefigurations of electric culture, as he talked about it, which basically means the global internet, the global interconnected village. And it does seem to be that that's what's happening.
They do not want people to take back their minds. And we're going to take back our minds soon.
That is that in our time, Buddhism and interest in Eastern spirituality is closely related to the rise of psychedelics. Most of you know the Tricycle, the Buddhist magazine, about 15 or 20 years ago now, made a survey, and out of the 1,500 respondents, 83% reported that they had psychedelic experiences. Well, that's a lot, 83%. So also in our time, psychedelics and meditation are very, you cannot separate them really. Psychedelics and meditation are very, you cannot separate them really. The rise of psychedelics and Buddhism in our time.
I left school early because the nuns refused to allow me books on Buddhism. I then studied under the world's leading expert on mysticism, Professor Zehner of All Souls in Oxford. It was some years later, in 1965, that I took my first LSD. Unfortunately, in 1966, a malintentioned individual who ran the World Psychedelic Centre in Chelsea and who had turned leery onto his first LSD trip, spiked my coffee with thousands of doses of LSD, which he kept in a famous vinegar bottle. Once I regained my consciousness, I retreated to a hut in the countryside and pulled the fragments of my shattered psyche back together again. This might have put me off psychedelics for life, but by good faith, I soon after met Bart Huges, a Dutch scientist of exceptional insight, who had developed a hypothesis of how LSD worked in the brain and how one could maintain control over one's expanded consciousness by ensuring a sufficient supply of vitamin C and glucose. Because we fell in love, I pulled myself together and dived back into a life enhanced by LSD. I felt as if I had passed through a portal of new understanding, both of myself and of humankind. It was then that I decided I'd found my mission in life, to scientifically research these changing states of consciousness and their potential value for the individual and humanity, and to integrate this knowledge into modern society. However, as a female with a vision, but no letters after her name and little money, in 1996 I did just that, to set up the Foundation to Further Consciousness, later renamed the Beckley Foundation. I set about organising a series of international seminars at the House of Lords, to which I invited leading scientists, politicians and experts.
But it's somehow going to be critically important in our lifetime that we will need it for something, maybe just to think our way out of the mess that we're getting into.
But if it's needed, we have it.
Yes.
That's the beauty. The tool is there for the time when the need is obvious. And this may be our lifetime.
So essentially what you're doing is you're placing tools on the shelf. Screwdrivers for screws that haven't been invented yet.
Except it's a good tool.
So this miraculous thing that we're talking about clearly involves something of the scale of a huge psychic transformation or religious revival. I mean, religious revivals have changed the face of the world more quickly than most things. The rise of Islam, for example. The transformation of England in the early 19th century by a massive religious revival which totally transformed England, in general for the better. These things are, fundamentalist Islam is having a huge impact, for good or ill, over large parts of the world. And something of that kind seems to me necessary. A massive psychedelic revival, the rave scene, which is sweeping the youth of Britain. I think probably, I don't know what the percentage, but my impression is about 50% of the youth of Britain is now caught up in this. It's now swept the provinces. It started in London a few years ago. It's now sweeping through, even through small towns and so on. These huge parties at which people dance wildly all night, having consumed MDMA and LSD, leading to a revival of interest in psychedelics and in 60s type music. And now, of course, as Terence knows full well, but some of you may not, the rave scene in Britain has discovered Terence McKenna.
Terence said before we got on stage today that basically we are sending out ideas. We call them memes. We're sending out contagious ideas. We're sending out infectious ideas that will hopefully land in fertile minds and brains, and a good idea at the right time will suddenly start growing in your mind. So we're part of the longest tradition of human spirit, the belief in individuality. Fuck society.
Yes, I.
We've got to stand up and say to every God out there, fuck you, God!
Yes, I.
The new tribalism, dancing all night, a sense of incredible unity with everybody else through the MDMA, the shared beat, the sense of new vision through psychedelics. But so far it has no political organization, no expression. It represents a need for a huge transformation and vision, but one which can't in itself actually go anywhere, in my opinion.
History is a state of incredible destabilization. It's a chaostrophe in the process of happening. It begins with animals kept in balance by natural selection, and it ends with a global internet of electronic information transfer.
Radical freedom means the right to take over and control our own destiny. A major slice of what it is to be a human being. This is intolerable. We have been robbed of our birthright by the frightened, the constipated, the narrow-minded, the stupid, and the afraid. The psychedelic experience is the replay of human history in the individual mind.
And it's our time to be alive. All these people that have lived hundreds of years ago and, built up to where we are now, that they've sort of handed the torch to us. And it's our responsibility now to really live as fully as we can and to bring a little bit more freedom to the world.
One of our mottos is, you get the gods you deserve, you get the drugs you deserve, and you get the realities you deserve.